Yes, I do so enjoy the lanes here at present. Would you mind if I took the long way back?
You have no wish of seeing Mr. Darcy, do you? Oh, Lizzie, I do wish to have confided in my visit last night. I confess I've never known you to shut so. Was he cruel to you?
Of course not. We just had a disagreement, that's all.
About? Very well then, I will return alone and make your farewells. You need not fear a repeat encounter.
Oh, Charlotte, you are too good a friend with me. I'm afraid I've been a bad friend to you.
Of course not. You're the best friend.
Miss Pitt, I've been walking the ground some time in the hope of finding you. Will you do me the honor of reading this letter?
I should discard this immediately. I should have left the grove before you even saw me. I assure you, this is due only to the strongest curiosity.
Be not alarmed, madam, on receiving this letter, for you need not fear any renewal of those offers which last night were so disgusting to you. But you've charged me with two very grave offences. The first is that I've detached Mr. Bingley from your sister, and second is that I've been the sole means of ruining George Wickham. If in this explanation I relate feelings which may be offensive, I beg in advance for your forgiveness. The severity of the charges demands it must be done, else I would have spared you the unpleasantness entirely. I had not long been in Hertfordshire before I saw that Bingley preferred your sister.
I do hope to see you very soon, Miss Bennet. Perhaps next we walk through Meryton.
I would like that, Mr. Bingley.
But it was not until the Netherfield ball that I became aware of the general expectation in town of their probable engagement.
And I must hope to have the pleasure often repeated, especially when a desirable event shall take place, such a well-suited match, wouldn't you agree?
From that moment, I observed your sister's behaviors attentively. Her look and manner were cheerful and engaging, but without any symptom of deep affection.
Without any symptom.
Though she received his attentions with pleasure, she did not seem to invite them with particular regard.
Mr. Bingley likes your sister undoubtedly, but he may never do more than like her if she does not help him on.
The quietness of her expression, the polite civility of her manner convinced me that her heart was not as violently engaged as my friend's.
She must leave him in no doubt of her affections. Mr. Bingley may lose interest if she insists on guarding her temper.
If I have been in error, then your resentment is not unreasonable, but there were other matters to consider. Your mother's family's relations in Cheapside, though objectionable, were nothing compared to the total lack of modesty and the blank desire for wealth so frequently betrayed by
Oh,
us.
yes, it is quite confirmed. Mr. Bingley has 5,000 a year.
Your younger sisters.
Colonel Forster, let have you with my equals placing your sword.
And even, pardon me, your father.
Try to come away, my dear. I believe you've delighted us long enough.
All of this induced me to preserve Bingley from what I truly believed would be a most unhappy marriage. As for Mr. Wickham, I fear I must lay before you the whole history. Mr. Wickham was indeed my father's godson and my boyhood companion. His manner with my father was easy and engaging, but from my father he was careful to guard his true character. I'm sure that you have been informed that Wickham was promised a parish living. I'm equally certain of what you have not been informed.
Darcy, I'm not so insensitive to the old man's wishes, but I have no desire of having the run of a church. You know I'm not suited.
Certainly not.
However, in lieu of taking orders, there is the matter of compensation.
Your price.
What say you to £3,000?
3,000? This cannot be true. It must be false.
I granted Wickham's request on the ground that he resigned all claim to the church, but scarcely 2 years later.
I've come to the realization, Darcy, that I was wrong to refuse such a noble calling. I do hope you would be so kind as to apply to the Archbishop and supply me?
How much is your debt?
Let us just say that my circumstances are bad.
I had no difficulty believing it, but you will hardly blame me for refusing him, or for my resisting his next 5 requests.
5.
He undoubtedly abused my character in your society as boldly as he does now my own.
Miss Bennet, I am a disappointed man. Military life is not what I was intended for. Mr. Darcy has done me a terrible disservice.
After this, our connection seemed entirely dissolved. But last summer, he was most painfully reintroduced to my family's acquaintance. My sister, Georgiana, who was 10 years my junior, was attending school at Ramsgate. Unbeknownst to myself, Wickham followed her there.
Why, sweet Georgiana Darcy, you have blossomed overnight.
Mr. Wickham.
She was then but 15, and persuaded to believe herself in love, and to consent to an elopement.
You know, my brother and my cousin did warn me to be on my guard for fortune hunters and Ramsgate, George.
Why, you know me too well to suspicion me of such things. Why, we grew up together, you and I. Born into poverty and raised in privilege, you know how I desire to make friends based on the merits of their character, rather than of their relations.
A day or two before the event, I joined them unexpectedly.
Brother?
Unable to grieve or offend me, Georgiana acknowledged the truth of the affair. You may imagine what I felt and how I acted. Wickham's chief motive was my sister's fortune, a sum of £30,000, but I cannot doubt that he also sought revenge upon me. Had this elopement taken place, had he succeeded in disgracing my sister, his revenge would have been complete. This, madam, is the faithful narrative of every event concerning Mr. Wickham. I know not what lies he has told you, but detection cannot be in your power. You are too good a person to suspicion those whom you will call friend. I hope you will believe me, but if your hatred of me prevents it, I invite you to appeal to Colonel Fitzwilliam for confirmation. He knows every particular. I will only add, God bless you.
I am an absolute fool. How despicably I have acted. How blind, partial, prejudiced. Was I so taken with Wickham that I could not see how very eagerly he related his misfortune? And did Mr. Darcy's pride so disgust me that I could not detect the falsehood in Wickham's slander? I sink used to the follies of my own family. I have forgotten how very ridiculous we must all appear. I have courted ignorance and driven away reason. Until this moment, I never knew myself. heartily sorry for him. Do you blame me for refusing his proposal?
Blame you? Oh, Lizzie, no.
But you should blame me for having spoken so highly of Wickham.
No, I know the truth of it. Everything about Wickham's conduct and manners gave us leave to think well of him.
Yes, seems between the two gentlemen, one has all the goodness and the other all the appearance of it.
And this new life listed the militia of gods and brighton, is it not?
Indeed, at least the ladies of Hertfordshire are safe beyond Wickham's reach. Jane, do you think we ought to make his conduct known?
With Wickham gone from Brighton, surely there's no occasion to expose him further. What do you think?
We ought not attempt it. Mr. Darcy has not authorized me to reveal it publicly, and he has entrusted me with the care of his younger sister's reputation. I would not wish to betray him.
Well, well, I am glad you are come back, Lizzie.
As am I, Papa.
I trust Jane has acquainted you with how often in your absence I have been readily assured of my failings as a husband and father.
Sir,
Oh, Lizzie, is your father not dreadfully cruel in refusing to take us all to Brighton?
no indeed, Mamma.
Lizzie!
Lydia and Kitty have already mourned for the loss of one regiment of soldiers. Think of how the whole campful of officers might bring.
There. The return of good sense to Longbourn. I could hardly stomach the notion of spending an entire summer in Brighton with two, or may I say, three, of the silliest girls in England.
Oh, Mr. Bennet, you take such delight in vexing me. Is it fair, Jane? Do you not wish for a holiday after being so cruelly cast aside by Mr. Bingley? An undeserving young man who abandoned Netherfield after using my daughter extremely ill?
Ma, I'm
Hey, Mr. Jane! Oh, Lizzie, Mr. Bennet, your very favorite doctor who refused dear Collins.
Oh, dear Collins. There, you see, Lizzie? Mr. Collins is now quite adored.
Surely Lizzie would have use for Brighton to recover from visiting Mrs. Collins. What news of Charlotte, Lizzie? No doubt she talks constantly of becoming mistress of my house when your father is dead.
There, Mrs. Bennet. Do not give way to such gloomy thoughts. Let us hope for better things. Let us flatter ourselves that I may live longer than you.
Papa, Jane! Papa, will Lizzie welcome home?
Lydia, what in the world?
Magnificent what is happening.
Heavens, girl, what is it?
Harry Falstaff, the wife of the colonel of the regiment, has invited me to think us at Brighton.
Oh, Lydia, how exciting, my dear!
Invited you to Brighton. On your own.
Oh, Lizzie Jane, this is not wonderful!
I don't think...
Oh, you must take every opportunity of enjoying yourself, my dear.
Not seeing Mrs. Forster, not as me as well as Lydia Lamar. Though I am not Harriet's particular friend, I have just as much right to Ness as she has. Why, I'm 2 years older.
Oh, Kitty.
Well, I don't see what causes her to be so very jealous. It's not if I applied to Harry for the invitation.
Jealousy is both reasonable and belongs to reasonable men, while envy is base and belongs to the base. For the one who makes himself feel good things through jealousy, while the other does not allow his neighbor to have them through envy.
Oh, James, you is right crowded with swarms of officers in red coats. Lydia, please see me sitting beneath the tent, Mamma, surrounded by 6 or 7 officers at once. Lydia, do take hold of yourself. You know Papa cannot spare the horses for a journey so long as Brighton. You will have no transport.
Oh, Papa, please, we ride all night. The rain if you must.
Lydia, really?
Lizzie is right, my dear. I'm afraid the horses cannot be spared. But perhaps we might apply to your mother's sister Gardner when she comes to visit in August. Surely she and your uncle can take you to Brighton upon their return.
Oh, Papa! Aunt Gardner, what a clever idea! Oh, Lydia, is not Mr. Bennet the most excellent father in the world?
Most excellent. My, wouldn't Harry Foster have been done much sooner? There, you see, Lizzie, you are come home, Lydia goes to Brighton, and I am restored to former glory.
Papa, you cannot be serious in granting Lydia your approval.
Oh, why ever not?
Father, consider how young Mrs. Forster is. She's hardly a year older than Lydia, and every bit as silly. She's hardly a suitable chaperone.
Come now, Colonel Forster's a sensible man. Surely he can keep her from any real mischief. and we are too poor for her to be an object of prey to such offices as would require a chaperone.
But far, really, consider.
Mark me, my dears. If Lydia does not go to Brighton, there will be no peace at Longbourn.
Twice more in the span of 3 weeks have Jane and I argued against Lydia's going, but Papa's will holds resolute, and his idea does have merit. Lydia is too poor to be of any interest to Wickham, and I suppose there is no stopping her now. Mamma's in high spirits again, and my aunt and uncle are arriving today to collect Lydia.
Hello, Lizzie.
Dear aunt, how fares Cheapside?
Very well, my dear, very well. Though your uncle's business has called him back to London for the rest of the summer. We had so hoped to visit the northern lakes together after our detour for Brighton.
Then Uncle Gardner did not accompany you.
And it's just as well, just as well.
I fear the bulk of Lydia's trunks will soon overtake the carriage.
Indeed.
Lizzie, what say you to accompany your dear old aunt to the mall? I confess I rather thought of giving up the holiday entirely after your uncle's son Tom, but it would please me greatly to show you the Lydia's Lantern.
Lantern, aunt.
A little town where I spent some of my youth once.
Would you continue your tour of the lakes then?
Why, of course, if you wish it. You can apply to see the great estates of Oxford, Woolwich, Birmingham. In fact, there is one estate not 2 miles from London, which I should brook no argument. Oh, if it were merely a fine house richly furnished, I should not care for it myself. The grounds are delightful. They have some of the finest woods in the country. What say you, Lizzie? Will you come?
I could never refuse you, aunt.
Wonderful. I shall speak to your mother and father directly.
Aunt Gardner,
Yes, dear.
what is the name of this fine estate we simply must visit?
Well, now that you mention it, I do believe you may know the owner. Your mother wrote to me last spring about a gentleman staying in town, in Netherfield.
Netherfield. Oh, then you must mean Mr. Bingley. You're taking me to see his estate in town.
Bingley. Oh, heavens no. We're going to Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's home.
Pemberley. Oh, the estate of Mr. Darcy. Few weeks of traveling left before the dreaded appointment. When we arrived at the inn at Lambton, I applied to the housekeeper of Pemberley directly and inquired as to whether or not the family were at home. Mercifully, she replied,
The family are away in London, madam. They are guests of Mr. Bingley and his sister. Though we expect the whole party arrived here tomorrow, madam, along with the master's sister, Miss Georgiana.
There, you see, Lizzie, you need not to worry about imposing on your friend.
Oh, does this young lady know Mr. Darcy?
a little.
And do you not think him a very handsome gentleman, ma'am?
Yes, very handsome.
I am sure I know none so good or handsome as my master, and I have no reason to his wholly guilty. This here is his portrait, ma'am, very much like him, but you will find a much finer, larger picture in the gallery upstairs.
Is your master much at Pemberley in the course of the year?
Not so much as I could wish, ma'am. If he would marry, we might see more of him, but I do not know that.
Mr. Darcy!
Miss Bennet,
not be here until tomorrow.
Oh, yes, well, a business with my steward required I return early.
I'm so sorry for intruding upon your privacy. Please excuse me.
I beg you to stay, Miss Smith. Please, you are most welcome here. How long has been your stay here, Derbyshire?
About a week.
And your family, are they all?
They are well, I thank you.
Ah, good. Excellent.
Mr.
Darcy,
Darcy.
Miss Smith, you must allow me to. This is when I wrote that letter.
Please, you have no need of explaining.
But you must know that when I wrote it, I believed myself perfectly calm. I'm since convinced it was written in a most dreadful bitterness of spirit. I beg you forgive.
The letter perhaps began with bitterness, sir, but it did not end so.
I knew that what I wrote must give you pain.
But it was necessary, I assure you, sir. Do not fret yourself.
I hope you have destroyed it.
It shall be burnt if you wish it.
It did. Or did it perhaps make you think not so ill of me?
Mr. Darcy,
Oh, Mr. Darcy, we did not expect you to be arrived here till tomorrow.
Apologies, Miss Smith. I don't have the time to inform you.
I shall ring for tea. Mrs. Gardner, Miss Bennet.
Miss Smith, would you give me the honor of introducing me to your friend?
Oh, of course. May I present my aunt, Mrs. Edwin Gardner?
Delighted, madam. Are you having a pleasant stay here in Derbyshire?
We are, sir. Though I fear I have imposed a little bit longer on my niece than intended. She's been my tour companion for weeks, as my husband was obliged to stay in town.
Ah, then might I inquire after Mr. Gardiner, ma'am?
You may, sir. He does very well, thank you. Though he's bound to his clients in Cheapside.
Cheapside, very charming village. I just happened by Grace Church Street not 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that is very near where we live. You must allow us to extend an invitation.
Only if you will allow us to do the same, madam. I'll be joined tomorrow by my sister, Georgiana, and on her behalf would like to extend an invitation to join us and the Bingleys at Pemberley for dinner. Tomorrow evening, perhaps, or some other night during your stay here in Derbyshire.
Oh, you are very kind, Mr. Darcy. What say you to that, Lizzie?
Oh, we would be delighted, sir.
Ah, Miss Bennet. How supremely agreeable to have arrived at Pemberley and found you against as well. My Caroline and I were speaking just the other day how dearly we missed our Hertfordshire friends. Dearly.
Oh, sir, I do not believe you met my aunt, Mrs. Gardner.
Ah, Mrs. Gardner, it is a great pleasure, ma'am. I remember how very highly of you Miss Jane Bennet often spoke.
Thank you, sir. I must return the compliment. For not a single letter arrived from my sister all season that did not but mention your kindness and attentions to my niece when she were ill.
It was my honor to be upset. But not I caught. What does she say on it? Does she, or rather, does all of these still reside at Longbourn?
Do you perhaps mean to ask if they are all still unmarried, sir? Come, let us share a cup of tea, and I will give you all the news in Meryton.
Miss Bennet, would you allow me to introduce someone who so particularly wishes to know you? My sister, Miss Darcy.
Georgiana,
I am so pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Darcy. Your brother speaks very highly of you.
she's too kind, sir.
I cannot believe it. Why, Mrs. Reynolds showed us a very pretty room yesterday. Recently redecorated, I understand.
My sister.
It is very elegant.
Thank you, Miss Bennett. It was a gift from my brother. I spent a good deal of time there with my pigs after, that is, when I returned home from school.
And who could do otherwise amid such cozy surroundings? You have impeccable taste, Miss Darcy.
Indeed, dear Georgiana. How could anyone think otherwise? You are very kind, Miss Eliza, to pay such compliments to my dear friend. It is always good to enjoy a bit of female companionship. Why, Darcy was telling me just the other day how glad he was to know I would be at Pemberley to dote on his dear sister.
Of course he was.
Pray, Miss Eliza, are not the militia recently removed from Meryton?
They are currently spending their summer at Brighton.
That must be a great loss for your family. Whatever Miss Kitty and Miss Lydia are finding to do with themselves.
Well, actually, Miss Lydia is...
Indeed, Miss Darcy. You'll find the Bennet girls are not quite so genteel as you or I. You'll find them more adventurous. I envy their vivacity.
Thank you, Miss Bingley.
I dare say you or I have hardly the spirit necessary to spend our summers chasing after young officers and declaring ourselves to be in love with every new handsome face in town. Why, Georgiana, are you feeling all right?
I believe the office heat has overwhelmed me as well, Miss Darcy. Shall we take some refreshment while you tell me more of the paintings? I hear you are quite accomplished.
how ill Eliza Bennet looks, Mr. Darcy. I have never seen anyone so altered since the winter as she is. Her skin has grown so brown and coarse, I feel I should not have recognized her.
I perceive no other alteration than her being rather tan. No miraculous consequence of traveling in the sun.
For my own part, I must confess I could never see any beauty in her. Her face is too thin. Her complexion has no brilliancy, and while her teeth are tolerable, I must confess I could never see her features as handsome.
Miss Bingley.
Why, I particularly remember when we first knew her in Hertfordshire, how amazed we all were to find she was a reputed beauty. I particularly remember you saying the night of the Meryton Assembly that she was not even tolerable enough to dance with.
Yes, indeed. But that was only when I first knew her. It has since been many months since I've considered her to be as one of the handsomest women in my acquaintance.
Oh, excuse me, sir. The post just came by way of express. Only, it's very odd, sir. I believe it's from Miss Bennet. It was directed straight here by the landlord from out here.
I'm so sorry, sir. I cannot imagine what would have caused them to send it
Oh,
here.
it's all right, Miss Bingley. It was sent express, so it must be important.
If you desire privacy, you can read it in the library.
Thank you, Miss Darcy. By the time my dearest sister received my hurried letter, I pray it may at least be coherent. I had hoped not to intrude on your holiday, but something has occurred of a most serious and urgent matter. We received an express at 12 on Friday from Colonel Forster to inform us that poor Lydia is gone from Brighton. Gone! That she's run off with one of his officers.
No, no, this cannot be.
To own the very truth of it, Lizzie, with Wickham.
No!
I'm very, very sorry. So imprudent to match. I was willing to hope for the best, but we somehow misunderstood his
Oh,
character.
sweet Jane, do not deceive yourself.
If we were only an ill-conceived elopement, we should fear. It did seem that Lydia thought they would marry.
Lizzie, is everything all right?
But father has since gone to London and learned from Captain Denny that Wickham never intended to marry Lydia at all.
I'm so sorry, sir, but we must leave immediately.
Good gracious, what is the matter?
Enclosed with my own, I've included a letter from Colonel Forster addressed to his wife. A letter from Lydia.
My dear Harriet, you will laugh when your I have gone, and I cannot help but laughing myself at your surprise tomorrow morning as soon as I am missed. I've gone to London, and if you cannot guess whom with, I shall think you a simpleton. Not needs in the word as long word of my God. It'll make the surprise all greater when I write to them and sign my name, Lydia Wickham. What a good joke it'll be. I can hardly write for laughing.
I had hoped to spare the thoughtfulness of our sister Lizzie to write such a letter at such a moment. Father has since gone to London to discover them, but surely his distress will not allow him to pursue them as your law. Will you write to Uncle in Cheapside and ask for his advice and assistance? And I cannot help but begging you all to return home as soon as possible.
We must leave for Longbourn, Aunt, immediately.
I am grieved indeed. Grieved. Shocked.
When I considered that I might have prevented it, I, who knew what he was, had been explained some part of Wickham's character, this could not have happened.
Upon my word, I cannot think so ill of this Mr. Wickham. It seems unlikely that any officer should form a design against a girl who is by no means unprotected or friendless, who is actually staying in the Colonel's family.
She's a fanciful hope, Aunt. She is lost forever. She has no great fortune he can be seeking, but then why should that matter to a scoundrel? You cannot doubt it, Mr. Darcy.
I'm afraid you've long been desiring privacy in this matter. Would to heaven that anything could be said on my part that might offer consolation. But I will not torment you with vain wishes.
You are very kind, sir.
I shall send Miss Reynolds to you at once. I'm sure you will be wanting your carriage as soon as possible. I'm very sorry for your distress, madam. I do hope for this affair a happier conclusion.
What shame Lydia's disgrace has placed our whole family in his eyes, in the eyes of everyone. And I cannot blame him. Who should ever want for our society after a scandal such as this? Most ill times, really. Never have I felt I could honestly love him as now. Love must be entirely in vain. heard?
Nothing yet, though father wrote that our uncle had some news. He's been using his influence in Cheapside to discover them.
What sort of news? Good or bad?
Oh, Lizzie, what is very good to be expected? Colonel Forster wrote that Wickham was in a wretched state of finances, and he's even talked of gaming debts. It would take £10,000 to clear his debts and brighten them up.
10,000? Oh, Jane, think what this will mean for poor Lydia.
Unhappy as the event must be for Lydia, we may draw from it this useful lesson that loss of virtue in a female is irretrievable, that her reputation is no less brittle than it is beautiful, and that she cannot be too much guarded in her behavior towards the underserving of the other sex.
It has now been almost a week since anything has been heard, with no news of the fugitives, and with Mamma still in hysterics and Papa in town. I do not believe anything short of a miracle will.
Mamma! Look, father arrives home.
Oh!
Where's Lydia?
Oh, do you think only 2 months since I went away? Good gracious, I'm sure I had more ideas of being married till I come back. But what good fun it was.
Oh, my dear girl!
Mamma, do the people hear about Snow I am married? I was afraid not, so I left them a glass in the carriage and took off my glove. So everybody might think the joke is long gone.
Oh, Mr. Bennet, is this not wonderful? To have one of our daughters married, and the youngest of them all. And Mr. Wickham, how handsome you look in your red coat. Do you not think so, Lizzie?
Is he not charming, Mamma? I'm sure all my sisters must envy me. They must all go to Brighton, for that is the place to find husbands. Why, I dare say, I shall get husbands for all of them before the autumn is over. Thank you for my share of the favour, but I don't particularly like your way of getting husbands.
Yes, well, shall we all retire to the parlor for tea?
Ah, Jane, I take your place now. You must go lower, because I am a married woman. What a coach ride that must have been. Dear Sir Paul, what sorrows you must have endured.
Say nothing of that, dear Lizzie. Who should suffer but myself?
But you must not blame yourself so.
No, Lizzie, let me feel how much I am to blame. I'm not afraid of being overpowered by my guilt. It will pass soon enough. But I promise you, Lizzie, I bear you no resentment for the advice you gave back in July, which, considering the events, showed some greatness of mind, my dear.
Papa,
Anyway, the thing is done. The terms so astonishingly convenient upon myself.
the terms, sir.
Yes, all that is required of me is to ensure Lydia's equal share of her inheritance.
Impossible.
Yes, Lizzie, those are my sentiments exactly.
But Wickham's gaming, his debts. How can he have married Lydia in town without paying off all his creditors?
And now we've come to the point. Lizzie, there are 2 things I want very much to know. One is how much your Uncle Gardiner must have laid down to bring this farcical elopement about. And the other, how am I ever to repay him?
Miss Elizabeth.
Mr. Wickham,
Oh, I'm afraid I interrupt your solitude.
you do. But the interruption need not be unwelcome.
I should be sorry if it were. I do so hope we can still be friends, Miss Bennet.
We are not, Mr. Wickham. We are brother and sister now.
Oh, well, sister, I understand from Mr. Gardiner that you were recently in Derbyshire with your aunt.
I was.
I envy the pleasure. I believe my new regiment shall prevent me from coming closer to Derbyshire in the coming months than Newcastle.
How unfortunate.
Did you happen to pass through the village of Kimpton in your travels?
We might have, Mr. Wickham, but our trip was curtailed.
I only mention because it is the place I ought to have had my living.
And how would you like making servants, Mr. Wickham?
Exceedingly well. It would have been just the thing for me.
Because I have it on good authority that you did not always feel so, that you actually declared your resolution against taking orders and were reimbursed accordingly.
Well.
George, go see Mamma in the parlor. She's an eager task at the card table. Lizzie, why can't you not join us? You're busy to
on for about 12 minutes.
When he was late, I started to worry. The grooms might never show. But lucky I remembered the evening had been invented. It would not need be delayed. We had an ale substitute for Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy?
Yes.
Mr. Darcy at your wedding?
Why, of course. It was Mr. Darcy who discovered us in London. He was with him to the church. Well, someone had to pay for the vicar and the flowers, you see, and not to mention Wickham's debts in London that need to be settling, and his creditors back in Rhine before we... Oh, precious me. I quite forgot.
What?
I almost said a word. It was such a secret. I promised Mr. Darcy so faithfully. He was adamant that no one must know. Oh, what will Wickham say?
Oh, Lizzie, though it pains me to say to our own sister, I am glad that Wickham and Lydia are going from Longbourn. It's a relief to have the house back to normal.
Indeed.
Would you like to walk with Meredith? Good evening.
Jane! Jane! Oh, make haste, child! He is come! He is come!
Grandma!
Why, Mr. Bingley, of course! He has come to Netherfield this week, and he's walking in the lane this moment! Oh,
Mrs. Bennet?
oh, Mr. Bingley, it has been a long time
Bennet.
since...
I hear I'm at the word of a private conversation between all of you.
How is your sister, Mr. Bingley?
Jane,
I did hope she
Jane.
would have stayed in London.
Jane, I beg your forgiveness. When I left, I accepted some extraordinarily bad advice from a friend. I allowed myself to be convinced that you did not care for me. You could not love me as I loved you. But my friend now assures me he was in the wrong, and I am in my own rationale. But dear Jane, I do not rest until I know for certain. Will you marry me?
Yes, Mr. Bingley.
Oh, Mr. Bingley! Oh, Jane, you will be a very happy woman!
Oh, just too much happiness, Mamma. Why is everybody not as happy?
Oh, my dear, dear girl, I am sure I shan't get a wink of sleep all night. I was sure you could not be so beautiful for nothing.
You are a good girl, Jane. And it gives me great pleasure to think that you will be so happily settled. Your tempers are so alike. You are each so complying that nothing shall ever be resolved on. So easy, every servant will cheat you. And so generous, you will always exceed your income.
Exceed their income? Why, what are you talking of, Mr. Bennet? He has 5,000 a year!
Miss Elizabeth Bennet. This lady, I suppose, is your mother.
She is. Mamma, this is Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
And that, I suppose, is one of your sisters.
Yes, Mum.
You have a very small room here.
It is nothing compared to Rosing's.
Miss Bennet, there seems to be a prettyish bit of wilderness on one side of your lawn. I would be glad to take a turn in it, if you will favor me with your company. You can be at no loss to understand the reason of my journey hither.
Indeed, you're mistaken, madame. I cannot quite account for the honor.
Miss Bennet, a report of the most alarming nature reached me 2 days ago. I was told that not only was your elder sister on the point of being most advantageously married, but that Miss Elizabeth Bennet, would in all likelihood soon be wedded to my own nephew, Mr. Darcy. Though I know this to be impossible, I instantly set out for this place, that I might make my sentiments plain.
If you believe